Hi, and welcome to Post-Burnout.com interviews. Post-Burnout.com is a culture website dedicated to venerating burnt-out artists the world over. My name is Aaron Kavanagh, and I'm the website's founder and editor-in-chief. This is our website's podcast where we interview people from various artistic disciplines. These episodes are sometimes full-length interviews from our site's articles and other times exclusives. If you're a returning listener, thanks for coming back. And if you're new here, thanks for checking us out. We hope you'll like it and stick around with us. In this edition of Post-Burnout.com interviews, we speak with the Irish musician Hugh O'Neill, professionally known as Honas. Hugh discusses his background in getting into music and production, moving from Sligo to Dublin to attend BIMM, starting the Honas project, going viral with the song Control, which at the moment has almost 20 million plays on Spotify, his new single Everyday Life, and more.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, how's it going? You alright?
All good. How are you?
Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm good. Yourself?
Good.
Cool. The first thing I wanted to ask just quite simply was what's kind of your background with music? Like, how did you kind of get into it initially?
So my family would be quite musical. My parents and my sister would have always kind of been in the kind of musical side of things. So there was that, and then my two brothers were kind of the two more musician types. I guess there was a music room in the house growing up where one played guitar and one played drums.
Hmm.
So any band rehearsals they ever had or whatever, I was kind of sitting in there soaking it all up. So I would say, yeah, it was through that.
What sort of music would they have been playing?
Um, I think, yeah, they're a little bit older than me, so I mean, Oasis would have been the biggest thing in the world at that point. So yeah, a lot of that kind of Britpop kind of stuff. And whatever else was just floating around that time. I remember like Mr. Jones by Counting Crows being
Yeah.
huge, and yeah, Chili Peppers, all that kind of stuff.
And then like how much of that kind of like music kind of like influenced you, and how much of it kind of was like independently found? Like how much of it do you think was kind of based on kind of what your family and what your siblings were listening to versus how much of it kind of like was your own thing, I guess.
Yeah, I think a huge part of it came from what I got fed through what they were listening to.
Yeah.
Like one brother was really into the kind of rockier stuff, and got me into Green Day, which resulted in a kind of a 5-year obsession with Green Day and that kind of pop punk scene. Um, Whereas my other brother was kind of into a bit more of the singer-songwriter stuff. He was a big David Gray fan. And I really got into that side of stuff. And later on, like the Irish singer-songwriters like Declan O'Rourke, Glenn Hansard, people like that. Um, Damien Rice. Um, and then, yeah, I suppose kind of in my teenage years in the 2000s, there was, you know, everything from Snow Patrol to like early Coldplay and stuff, which definitely fed in as well. But then I think it's all of that. And then when I was maybe in like early 20s, kind of discovered Bon Iver and people like that, and got more interested in the production side of things,
Yeah.
and kind of using a DAW, like Logic or something as an instrument.
Mhm.
So I guess that was kind of on my own, or like my peers in college and stuff. That was the second phase of musical discovery, I guess.
And then like because you mentioned like your family had like instruments around the house like drums and guitar. For you, what was like kind of the first instrument that you picked up, and kind of why do you think you gravitated the way you did?
I think guitar. Yeah, I started playing guitar when I was 8. I think both brothers played guitar, and every other family member played a little bit.
Yeah.
So if the brothers weren't around to show me the next chord, someone would be there to show me the next chord. But then, yeah, I was really lucky. I managed to kind of, like you said, there were instruments around the house, so I got a little go of everything, and so I'd be comfortable enough on keys, and I'd know my way around a drum kit enough that it helps me communicate with a drummer in a band, or I can program in decent, convincing beats, if I'm
Yeah.
producing something. So yeah.
That's kind of cool though, because like that's kind of like do you ever look at that as kind of like a sort of unique opportunity? Because I know like for people who've kind of came into being a musician who aren't from like a musical background, they had to kind of fund their first instrument. In a lot of ways, it's a gamble. It's kind of like, well, am I going to be a guitarist? Am I going to be a drummer? So on. Where it's like you kind of have like from a young age the utility to kind of experiment and find what works for you, I guess.
Yeah, true. So lucky. I think even when I tell friends about or like I refer to the music room,
Yeah.
I think my parents were just so supportive of the music side of things for all of their kids that there was a converted garage in the house I grew up in that was solely dedicated to music, which was amazing because yeah, not everyone gets that opportunity. So yeah.
And then what kind of made you interested in kind of the to the production side of things? Because I think that's if I am correct, that is kind of how you actually kind of got into music in the big way, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think I don't know. I think I was always interested in computers and technology anyway. Um, and one of the first big presents that I got, whether it was for, I don't know, was it like confirmation or like um a big present for a birthday or something like that, but I wanted a laptop, quite early on.
Yeah.
So I think that alongside music, the two were always gonna like combine at some stage. Um but again, it was one of my brothers picked up an audio interface and a condenser mic, two things that I'd never heard of at the time, and both together trying to figure out how to work these things. It definitely used to not be as simple as it is now, just plug and play. Especially with old Windows machines and stuff, it was like a bit more complicated. But um, yeah, and I think from then on, like when I eventually got a MacBook down the line, moving on to Logic, that's when things really opened up for me. I got really, really into that and found it really intuitive, and yeah, it became a huge part of my music making process.
Well, I think it's interesting is because you were kind of like mentioning about like how, you kind of had other family members there to help you with guitar when you were learning. Did you find like when it kind of came to the production side of things and working with the computer that you were kind of going in at the deep end sort of by yourself, or did you find like it's in a way, I guess, like, for a lot of people, like learning guitar, learning an instrument for themselves is kind of like a self-taught way in another way, even though you have the kind of like foundation of a kind of musical family, you're still having that kind of experience of being self-taught in a way. Did you find that kind of daunting, or how was that initially, I guess?
Definitely. I guess like it was actually the same thing with guitar where I was shown the basics by members of my family and stuff. But like I mentioned there, my siblings are a bit older than me. So eventually they moved out of home to go to college or, to live in Dublin. We were in Sligo.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, I was self-teaching guitar and piano from then on, and luckily kind of was able to pick things up by ear quite well, and I suppose I got used to doing that, so that naturally developed kind of through the years. And then with the working with a DAW, I suppose it was the same thing where myself and my brother figured out the basics by ourselves, and then yeah, I just had to kind of, I suppose, like by the time I got Logic and stuff, YouTube was already a thing, and if you're trying to do something, there was always a tutorial there to show you. Um, so yeah, and then I think I did kind of get stuck in a place where I was only able to do a certain amount, or it was getting a bit complex. But through working with other people, like people who've produced my music and stuff, and just watching them like a hawk, and picked up a lot of bits as well. So I feel actually fairly literate, in Logic now. It took a while, but yeah, I'm pretty confident on it now.
And then, like, when did you start kind of like performing music live, I guess, or when did you kind of like, I guess, like, kind of feel confident enough to kind of like go beyond the confines of your house and actually kind of bring it out into the world?
I mean, playing in public in general kind of started at a young age, I think. Again, because my brothers were in a band and I thought that was the coolest thing ever. It was a cover band, but whenever there was an opportunity, if they were playing at a friend's 21st or whatever, or a family event, it became a thing that I would join for a few songs. So um and then even like went busking a few times kind of at a young age, and then even started gigging in pubs and stuff from the age of like, an age I shouldn't have been doing it really, like 15, 16 or something. So yeah, I think I did notice when it became my own songs that I was playing in public, it's a totally different kettle of fish. You feel far more vulnerable and it's very scary.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I don't know when my first opportunity to play my own stuff was, but yeah, I think all that early kind of exposure to playing live definitely helped. I do love performing. It's yeah.
And then when did you move to Dublin, and when you kind of made that move, I mean, how did you find the music scene in Dublin different from say Sligo?
Yeah, I mean, Sligo is absolutely buzzing with music right now. I think
Mhm.
when I was kind of in secondary school and, about to go into college, I think I only knew of maybe two or three other musicians that were as into it as I was, and,
Right.
that were kind of already playing at a high level and that kind of thing. Um, so to go from there to Dublin, where I studied in BIMM, like big music college, I think, yeah, some people like really flourished when they got into BIMM and they found it really inspiring being around loads of people that were really talented and stuff. I think there was a part of me went, oh shit, I'm
Right.
like, I went from being one of the only people I knew that did this to feeling like a very small fish.
Yeah.
Um, so I think there was a couple of years of just getting used to that and navigating that. I wouldn't say I was overly active in the music scene in Dublin for the first couple of years, but then one of my friends, Dave O'Shea, he was in my songwriting class in BIM, and he was in a band called Orchid Collective,
Yeah.
and he asked me to join to fill in on bass for a while because their bass player had left. Um, and I mean, if you can play guitar, you can play some basic level of bass. So I was like,
Right.
yeah, I'll fill in for a while, but was definitely kind of learning as I went. But
Was this
that,
kind of root notes and stuff at the time?
yeah, very basic stuff. And
Yeah.
then the I remember like the realization that, oh, I don't have to play the root note, and you can really change the feeling of a song. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a nice lesson in like how much influence a bass line can have on a song. And yeah, I played bass with Orchid Collective for, I don't know, was it 5 years or something? So I was really active in the music scene then, played loads in Dublin, but also did the randomest of spots all around the country. So
How did you find that actually going from someone who's like kind of doing their own music to actually sort of aiding a bigger collective like that, and kind of and then also like how much, like, because like I assume when you first go in it's kind of like playing songs that are already established, but then as you kind of like stick with the group, I mean, how much kind of like creative input did you find you had?
yeah, definitely as it went on, like loads more creative input. Myself and Dave, um, I loved I loved sitting down with him and bouncing ideas off him, and it was a very collaborative band for sure. Um, I think I think it was really good for me being in the band and kind of not having the I used to put a lot of pressure on myself to try and figure my own thing out. And to get songs written and stuff. And I definitely was getting stuck. I didn't know what my sound was or what my kind of creative identity was yet. Um, so I think all that experience with the band, and I guess like, also I was always on my own when it came to my own stuff, and
Mhm.
being in that kind of collaborative atmosphere was really cool, and it definitely helped me along the way. And it did come to a point, you know, as I say, whether it was 5 or 6 years of being in that band, where I went, I'm actually ready to start doing my own thing now again. So um yeah, it wasn't a thing where I was trying to balance both. I think one informed the other and helped it along.
Well, is that kind of where Honas came from then?
Yeah, I think so. In 2018, I had a small collection of songs that I felt were all in a similar vein, and that was a first for me because I constantly felt like I was writing in different styles and stuff. So when
Yep.
that happened, I got really excited about that, and I just wanted to record it all and release it. So I went into the studio with Adam Redmond, producer from Dublin, um, and yeah, we we recorded, I think, about 8 songs together. Um, and yeah, basically over the next little while, like I was trying to finish those off myself and stuff. And then COVID hit and whatever. So I think, yeah, there was kind of a thing where I was really confident in this group of songs, and then when I had a chance to step back again, I felt like it wasn't really me after all. So I kind of started again then last year, I think. Um, and well, I suppose all that time I was writing new songs, but I think it hit me again last year where I was like, okay, I've got a really solid group of songs that I'm really confident in, and I feel really good about the releases that are coming up, and the one that's just gone out, Everyday Life, is yeah, like that's one that came together with another producer, Marion, over in Vienna,
Hmm.
and yeah, we were working on some other stuff first, and then uh, this chord progression came along, and we knew we were supposed to be finishing off other tracks. We were like, oh, let's just run with this for a little while. I think I was more reluctant, but Marion was like, come on, man, this feels really
Yeah.
good. We're like, okay, we'll give it an hour. I was like, my management are gonna fucking kill me, but uh,
I
yeah,
think there's a real beauty in that, what you're saying, where it's kind of like, you have to kind of, obviously you plan out a schedule, you have kind of like, your time allotted, and you kind of like think about what you're going to be doing. But then like, I do think there is just a beauty, just like, because I think that's how like kind of like really music in kind of its essence is created. It's just like, kind of just like going with like a good feeling, and it's almost like catching stardust in a way where it's like, you just kind of have to go with it. It's like really rare. It's like, just when you have something, just stick with it, and see what it eventuates into.
yeah, for sure. I mean, with that song, it couldn't have really gone more ideally because yeah, I think I had that guilt in me. I was like, should we be spending all this time? Because I was flying to Vienna
Right.
to work with Marion, so we were definitely on like a limited time and stuff. Um, but yeah, we were like, we'll give it a couple of hours, and we just never wanted to stop then. And then the song came together, in that first day. I think we applied some finishing touches the next day, so like 1.5 days, and then sent it off to be mixed by John Catlin, amazing mix engineer. Um, so yeah, it was such a quick and enjoyable process, and it resulted in a song that I'm just so proud of. It's a and I didn't have any time to fall out of love with it or get sick of it or anything, because that was only like 8 or 9 months ago. So
Yeah.
it was a lovely kind of natural, organic turnaround, and it's just such a great feeling to have the song out in the world already.
I actually want to talk a little bit about, as you were mentioning, kind of like you were recording it in Vienna. You're on like a German record label, right? I believe Mountain Silver. Sorry,
Went over, yeah.
Mount Silver. Yeah, who are based in Berlin, I believe. So see, and you work with like German producers. I think it's interesting, like the kind of the sort of like international dynamic of the group. I was wondering, like, of the project. I mean, sorry. I was wondering like how that kind of came about, how you started like traveling and kind of working with kind of foreign producers and such.
Yeah, so basically I spent a little bit of time living in Berlin right before COVID hit. So got to know some people over there. And then yeah, when was it? I think I was playing some shows that Hibernical were putting on in Ireland. So there was a thing they ran over COVID where like 16 artists were invited down to Doolin Hotel, like kind of a collaborative week, um, with like Saint Sister, Nilo, Lisa Hannigan, Paul Noonan. That was a really cool thing to be part of.
Mhm.
Um, and then after that, they put on a series of gigs in Burr, and I played one of those gigs. And I think it was around then that Adam um got in touch. So Adam is with Character Music Management. Um, and yeah, he had shown the rest of the management team my stuff, and everyone really liked it. And I think Wallace Bird was playing one of those Bird gigs, and they manage her as well. So I think that's how it kind of came about. But then yeah, flew over and met them, and the guys are amazing. First meeting, we kind of, I think we all knew that it was going to be a good relationship. And then I guess just moving forward, we were trying to find different producers to work with. Um, so I think they were kind of just looking at people that they'd worked with in the past, like different writers and producers. So they hooked me up with a few different people. But this guy Marion has his own original artist project called Inner Tongue, and they manage that project as well. So they were like, you should go and meet him, you know. And so I went to Vienna, met him, and I remember he wasn't free till like 9 o'clock at night.
Okay.
So I went and met him, and we just talked for probably like 4 or 5 hours straight in a studio. And I remember him being like, should we? And I thought he was going to say, like, should we call it a night? And he was like, should we jam something? So, yeah, stayed there till, I don't know, it was 4 or 5 in the morning. But that was kind of our first time jamming the new, like a new version of a song I had called Cash Machine. And yeah, straight away realized that was going to be a pretty cool working relationship as well. So yeah, every trip flying over to Marion was really productive and really fun.
And then actually, when it came to doing your first single, then I mean, it was Control. I was wondering why did you decide, in that song to as kind of an introduction, I guess, to this new project.
So yeah, Control kind of happened right before COVID hit, and that was just a guy I met in Berlin, and I suppose yeah, it was very much a you know a collaborative kind of thing. He makes so much of that kind of chill house music. He's so active. I'd say he puts out a song a month and has done for the last I don't know how many years. But yeah, we just met and decided to do a little track, and again it came together in half a day. And I don't think there was like much thought like gone into it at that stage because it was just so early on. COVID was literally looming. I went over to his house to record it, and I was like, should I be touching anything?
All right. Okay.
I'm singing into this microphone, So yeah, it was just kind of a bucket, scenario where I was like, let's put this out. And yeah, I mean, it's done unbelievably well. It is quite different stylistically to the stuff I'm going to be releasing myself, but yeah, I am still really proud of it. I like it. I like the song, and it's what it's achieved streams wise is kind of mind boggling. So
And
yeah.
then actually, as you're mentioning, because like as we speak, it has about 20 million streams on Spotify. Then,
Mm.
as you were mentioning, like last week, you released your follow up single, "Everyday Life." I was wondering then, like when it kind of goes from something that becomes like a big hit like that, is there any kind of like thought in your head like, oh shit, how do I follow that up, or do you kind of just have to sort of get out of your own way and go, no, this is a good like follow up to it, and I just have to believe in the song, or I don't know how did you feel kind of like
It's
after that, I guess.
To be honest, this felt like more of a first single rather than a follow up. Because it's just it really does sit in a different world to Control. And I think the fact that you can see there's two artists involved in that first track, I think people would have the impression that that's kind of a different thing. So yeah, I didn't really feel like pressure to live up to Control or whatever. I knew even doing Control that wasn't the style of music that I was going to put out, separately to that collaboration. So yeah, I think with Everyday Life, like I have another 4 or 5 songs kind of ready to go. So Everyday Life wasn't kind of produced in isolation. It has these other songs that kind of feel good to go along with it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just about picking the right one of those 5 tracks or whatever to go out first. And Everyday Life was, it was pretty unanimous, thankfully, like between management and myself, and everyone thought that should be the first single. So yeah, it felt like a confident decision, and still feel good about it. Yeah.
Do you think there's like a sense of continuity between this song and the ones that are coming out? Because actually, from my opinion as a listener, like I felt like it was kind of a good sort of continuation from Control. I know you said like the two feel because like again, you don't want to be like a feature artist, you want to be like your own artist, and I get that. But I felt like it was kind of like a good like I don't know if you don't want to use the term follow up, but I did feel like it was a good continuation, let's say. Do you find that the songs that are going to be sort of companions to it, let's say, do you think they're kind of like more in line, or I guess what I'm rambling trying to say is you find that everyday life is a good kind of indication of what your sound is going forward?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's why it was quite important to us to put that one out first, because there are singles to come that will be more, I guess, radio friendly. And I don't mean that in a bad way. I'm still really, really proud of those songs, but they do have a little bit more of a commercial element, or they might be a little bit more upbeat or something. Um, but I just didn't want to put a song like that out first and for that to be the thing that people expect all the time, you know. I
Mm.
don't see Everyday Life as a typically radio song. Thankfully it has actually got a little bit of radio play that's been really, really encouraging. But yeah, I think it was quite important for me that that was the first song to go out. I think that was a good indicator of stuff that is to come.
Perfect. One last thing I'd like to ask actually is just because you were mentioning being a producer yourself, I was wondering like as someone who's now collaborating with other producers, do you find there's because I don't know like how you feel about it, like, but I think like when I talk to producers, people who produce or musicians themselves, they often find production to be a kind of extension of the creative arm rather than, I don't know, some people kind of divorce the two. They kind of think like, okay, the creativity and the songwriting's over here and the technical side is over here. Where I find like producers think the two are actually more merged than than other people do. I was wondering then, do you find like working with other producers that there's kind of a relinquishing of creative control, or do you find it's actually beneficial to the overall creation to have a second voice and a second opinion?
Yeah, I think it's been quite like cyclical for me, like my relationship with uh producing and its relationship to, my writing. I think I've gone through phases where both really kind of inform each other and they work really well, and I'm doing both at the same time, and that's great. Um, I also go through phases where I can't, they don't work together. I have to be doing one or the other. And if I try to do both at the same time, nothing gets done. Um, so I think, to be honest, I feel like I've been more in that space the last while, and I think working with Marion was amazing because he was in the writing sense, he was kind of a what's the word? It's not coming to me. But he was kind of letting me run a facilitator, I guess,
Mhm.
on the writing side of things. He was letting me go on that side of things, and while he was kind of tricking away and building sounds and that kind of thing. Um, so yeah, that was especially for everyday life. That was like, yeah, it worked really, really well. Um, yeah, and then I find it like if I'm producing a track for a friend or something like that, um, I find it really fun and I feel like I don't get stuck and whatever. It's more when I've been working on my own stuff the last while, trying to produce that, I overthink everything and uh, yeah, I run into a good few stumbling blocks. So yeah, for my own stuff, it was really nice to have other pairs of ears to bounce ideas off and to work with. Yeah.
You were mentioning actually earlier that like kind of like the songs that are coming out now were kind of uh like written and kind of like like everything was kind of done in very quick, like it was done very quickly. I was wondering, do you think if you had time to kind of like let it ferment and like record something, put it down, then come back to it after like a series of weeks, that you'd be able to have a kind of more detached sort of kind of perspective as you were kind of mentioning with other people's music, or do you find like no, it'll always just kind of have that same resonance with you?
Um, it is this if I was to produce my own stuff and leave that.
Yeah, if you were to like give a space of time between it, do you find that like, I don't know, like, or even just like if you had like say a raw recording of it before putting the frills to it, let's say,
Yeah,
do you find that that would help give you, because you were kind of mentioning that kind of detached perspective external producers can have to other
yeah.
people's material, or do you find like it's always just going to be too personal to be able to do that realistically?
I think like I said, it's cyclical for me. I think sometimes I will sit down and start slotting things in and it'll all be happening and whatever. Um, But I mean, if I go and open a session that of a demo that I put down 6 months ago and try to fill it in, like in the place I am right now, I think I'll just still be overthinking every element that goes in. Even if I was over in Vienna with Marion and he was like, "Do you want to sit in for a while?" And I start like adding some stuff, I would probably second guess it more than if he was playing around with some stuff and I'm going, yes, that's the right thing. So yeah, that's just where I am at the moment. It'll come back where I feel totally confident in every decision I make. Yeah.
I think I've asked everything I have to ask. I just want to ask, like, finally, is there anything you'd like to add before we wrap up, or do you think everything's been covered?
Yeah, I think nothing comes to mind. I guess I'd just really love people to give me a follow on Spotify and Instagram. They're the two platforms that I'm trying to put most work into at the moment. So
Do you want to plug them real quick?
yeah, sure. So my Instagram is Honas Music, Honas Music, and you can find me just Honas on Spotify. I've also got a little playlist of stuff that inspired the music that is to come on Spotify, A Change in the Weather, if you want to. But lots more to come. I'm releasing another single in January, February kind of thing, just after the new year. And yeah, the train will be rolling from there.
That's perfect, man. Thanks very much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron. Cheers.
Thanks. Bye.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to that episode of Post-Burnout.com interviews. If you liked it, please subscribe and stick around because we have plenty more like this coming soon.